The content, views, and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the City of Bremerton, BCAT, their officials, or their employees. Hello, and welcome once again to Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers Creative Showcase. And I'm here still with my publisher, as I sit here and stumble over your name, with my publisher, Jennifer DiMarco. Get my mouth to work. God. We're doing another half-hour show here because we just did one on more of the literary and publishing world. What we want to do now is, because Blue Forge also has a film division, and Jennifer has been doing a lot of independent film. And we're going to kind of tie this into how it can interface with the publishing world and us, especially independent authors and stuff, and how you can use film to maybe get some of your works of art out there. So once again, Jennifer, for part 2 about the film world now. Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing indie films, I guess you'd call them?
Okay, so, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Blue Forge does have a film division. So Blue Forge was founded in 1989.
Right.
And back then it had 2 divisions. It had a book division and a gaming division. Mm-hmm. Okay. But then about 15 years ago, Blue Forge expanded to, it had still gaming and still does, and a book division, but also it added an audio division with podcasts and music,
right, and
a film division. And that change occurred because independent film was really coming down in price. That threshold for entrance had come down. Why? Because of the personal smartphone. Now we had, and at that point it was still top of the line, so there were DSLRs,
right,
nice digital cameras that were prosumer, meaning
right,
they were top end, but they were affordable to a hobbyist or an independent filmmaker.
They weren't the big, huge, what they call them, cameras?
Reds, Dragons, Epics.
Yeah, the huge, several $1,000s to get one camera.
20,000.
Right.
Yeah, entry 20,000
right,
plus your lenses, plus your batteries, plus your media to record on. But as smartphones got smarter and smarter and better and higher resolution, until finally, I believe right now, it's the iPhone 16 Pro, which literally, the new iPhone literally has cinematic mode.
Oh, okay.
Which allows it to do things like tracking shots, blurring the background, rack focus. I mean, it literally does everything that those entry level, that first generation of prosumer digital cameras did, and more.
But at the same time, and we'll get more technical here, if you understand how to block shots and stuff,
yes,
it's hard to tell the difference between a high-end cell phone and a lot of cameras.
That's actually one of my favorite stories, Mark, is that one of the, I'm very grateful to have worked with some amazing independent filmmakers over the years since Blue Forge opened Blue Forge Films. But we were at one point doing a feature film that was called Ghost Noir. And in this, there was one segment where a vintage car was supposed to drive over the POV of the camera, to just like rush right at that camera. And could not get an insurance bond to cover the fancy, expensive camera. And I really pushed, and I said, I'm telling you guys, if we put a top-of-the-line iPhone in the middle of the road on a little stand and drive over it, when this shows in the theaters, no one will know that one shot, that one 7-second shot was filmed on a phone. And no, you can't do it. You have to do the fancy camera. You have to do all this. And I'm like, that's impossible. Cut to the premiere, beautiful red carpet premiere. The film shows, fantastic. Everything is wonderful. And everyone says, see, aren't you glad that you didn't do a phone in the road? And I just tilted my head and said, that was a phone in the road. So these phones, they have all the accessories that you can get for the big fancy cameras. You know, they have the mounts and all of that. You can get it for a phone. And they shoot in 4K. And, you know, people say, and you don't even need 4K if you're just going on YouTube or social media platforms or even broadcast television. But you can shoot in 4K. That's fantastic.
But even then, having watched some of the independent film was filmed with cameras.
Yes.
As a consumer, unless it is CinemaScope, like Lawrence of Arabia,
IMAX.
IMAX. Unless it's something like that, you can't tell the difference.
No, you can't.
In fact, I'm old enough to remember when they first started experimenting with videotape versus 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter film, and you could tell the difference then. Okay, they use videotape for that section as opposed to this high-end, you know, millimeter film thing.
Yeah.
But as things went along, eventually, and television got better at it, it was hard to tell the difference.
Yes.
Videotape or whatever.
And I know you're not saying this, and I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that a film aficionado or someone who their whole life is audiovisual.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they can look at anything. I'm sure they could even look at that feature film and go, oh, yeah, that shot where the car goes over the camera, that's a phone. You know, I mean, I'm sure someone can. But the average viewer.
Right.
And I always say, put story first. Robert McKee wrote what I feel is the best book for an aspiring filmmaker, and it's literally called Story.
Right.
Okay? And it breaks down pacing, how we want to pace a film. It's not about like, this is what rack focus means. And this, no, it's about the story, putting the story at the core. Because a good story, well told, will sell any flaws in the tech.
Telling also has to do with the editing.
Yes.
Because I recently watched, it was one of the kind of, I guess you'd call it, in the old days it would have been called a B movie. Okay, so you had some actors that you would recognize, but they weren't A-list.
Yeah.
And it was a cop drama, and it was about, you know, this woman got transferred to this new big city department, and she was put with this older guy who, you know, of course, had his long-term problems and was an old curmudgeon. Not that old, but he was a curmudgeon already. So they had this long story about their interaction, and they had this backstory about this criminal organization and how they almost bumped into each other and da-da-da-da-da. I don't know who edited it, but all of a sudden, halfway through the thing, you're going, okay, you now have two separate stories, and at the very end, there's no real connection. I mean, they kind of like glossed it over, and I'm going, that's got to be the most unsatisfying ending for just a viewer, you know.
You know, one of the things that McKee says about endings is he said, always give the viewer the unexpected but satisfying ending.
Yeah.
And I've always loved that. You can kill all your characters, but it still needs to have like, wow, what a story.
Right.
That was worth it. As opposed to, you killed everybody?
Well, unless
why?
Unless it's just a slasher film. Because that's all they do. I mean, slasher films, let's face it. If you kill everybody in the movie, then everybody who loves slasher films, they'll go see it. You know,
I always say, even with slasher, there better be a message there. They all died because they wouldn't work together. You know, what was it? But so yeah, I think probably the biggest thing in 2025 about independent film is for folks to take the filmmakers they know and take them off the pedestal.
Right.
And to remember that if you can shoot with a phone, you can make an independent film that can win festivals. And I know that some folks are going to be like, you've got to be kidding me. But it's already happening.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it happen. We've done it. We've shot independent film on phones and then sold it to larger studios
Right.
to then distribute. And it's a matter of, again, and I know we talked about
Yeah.
this when we were talking about books. What are you passionate about?
Yeah.
Don't say, what's selling this year? I'll try to make a film about AI.
Yeah.
And, I'll have an actor play the AI.
Yeah.
That seemed to be very, very trendy right now.
I know.
And I'm like, you know what? Big studios
Yeah.
are doing that plot badly.
Exactly.
Why in the world, without a $1 million budget, would you want to try to make a film about that topic? Scale it down, scale it down. What about if we had you, Mark, as an actor,
Yeah.
and we cast a handsome, vivacious, just screams charisma young man that could be a young you.
Right.
We put you in a coffee shop, had you guys talking, and halfway through the conversation, we come to realize you're not interviewing him for like a job or something. You're interviewing him because he's an android run by AI.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
he is going to pick up your life
Right,
from
yeah.
this for. See, that could be a plot that you could use, and you could film it in such a way, and the story,
Right.
the strength of the acting, you could actually do something.
There are some movies out there with A-list actors, and one of them that was made back, I think it was 2014, 2016. It was one of Gandolfini's last from The Sopranos, one of his last films, and with Tom Hardy. And I tell everybody about this movie, so you're going to get free advertising. It's called The Drop. That was one of those movies that was character and plot driven. Not a lot of car chases, not a lot of shooting, not a lot of da-da-da-da. Dialogue, excellent acting, like you said, good editing, so you could follow the story. Every time you watch it, you get a little bit extra out of it, because you'll catch something. Oh, okay, that's cool. But you still, even the first time you watch it, you understood the whole story and everything. But you didn't have, the huge music in the background. You didn't have 10,000 explosions. You didn't have a superhero.
It's interesting that you bring up music.
Yeah.
I tell our aspiring filmmakers, I say, first of all, don't give your people a lot of props. Don't rely on the props. This isn't prop comedy. I mean, unless you're making a prop comedy. But, don't give them that crutch.
Right.
Write strong dialogue, but also film is a visual medium. If you want the dialogue to be at the forefront, then write a play.
Right.
If film is about the imagery, so, like you're saying, if we're lingering on the steaming mug of coffee in that cafe scene where you're talking to the younger AI version of yourself, maybe you can't drink coffee anymore because you have an ulcer.
Yeah.
And so you keep staring at the coffee and you finally say, "You going to drink that?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, sir, I don't drink."
Yeah.
Something like that. But you're like, boy, you're like, that's it for you.
Yeah.
If he can't drink coffee, he's not human enough.
Right.
But so one, rely on your visuals. And two, rely on a good composer. Music.
Yeah.
Good music can elevate and replace, in a lot of ways, a giant budget.
Right.
Because that music can evoke that emotion in your viewer. So I always say, don't worry about if your camera isn't fancy.
Yeah.
Focus on your visuals and get yourself a good composer.
Yeah.
Don't use stock music if you can avoid it.
But at the same time, when we're talking about the visuals, you still need that. You're doing a visual, but you still need realistic dialogue.
Yes.
So people can tell
Absolutely.
that's how people really talk.
Yes, authentic dialogue.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the problems that they make is they may have good-looking actors and actresses, and you have this great sex scene or whatever, and the dialogue is, nobody's going to say that.
Yes.
You know?
When we talk about books, and you and I have talked about
Yeah.
this before, is that dialogue, make it realistic.
Right.
How do you do that? You have to read it out loud. There's no shortcut. There's no way around it. And the best way to do it is if you buy a couple pizzas, buy some soda, have a bunch of people over, and you assign characters. I got to tell you, the best manuscripts that we see come in and the best scripts are ones that have been read aloud. Have that table read where people are reading the dialogue. Is that really how people speak? Is that really how that type of person would speak?
Years ago, and you know the story, I was helping write this screenplay for Hollyweird and trying to sell it and all this jazz. So we had a table read.
Yeah.
And we had this one character, and in fact, this movie eventually wound up being part of a book I wrote called Game Worlds, because the original movie was supposed to be huge.
Which is out now,
Yeah,
under the name Marshall
exactly.
Miller.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So
You never
it's a
talk about
whole-
your own
yeah,
stuff.
I know. I'm horrible when it comes to self-promotion. But the thing was, so we did the table read because the other person I was working with wanted to do part of the specific huge story arc that I'd come up with. She wanted to do this. So we were doing a table read and for that portion of the whole arc.
Yeah.
And we had an actress, and she's down in Hollywood right now too. She's not, young, college age. She's, older. She read this one part for this queen. She nailed it. She created the character right there on the table read. Just by the way she did inflection, she brought her A game. So I decided that when the script didn't go anywhere, I had to finish writing that whole series. So if nothing else, that character would live on. And in fact, I've still got to send her a copy of the book, with a little note saying, "You remember you? Remember this?"
Yeah.
And so I keep calling her the Queen every time I talk to her on Facebook or something. It's, "Oh, the Queen's here again," because she nailed that. But that's the thing, is that once again, sometimes it is the actor being able to take the dialogue and bringing it up to another level.
Absolutely.
And the thing I have problems with the way they consider visuals today is it's all about car chases, it's all about explosions. In other words, they decided, oh, well, we can sell it. When I was growing up, James Bond movies were the thing to do, okay? Because they pushed the envelope, they had the great music, they had this quasi-sex scenes, they were starting to push the envelope back in the 60s as to what they could show on film and stuff. And of course, the early ones were Sean Connery. He was a heck of an actor. But as they went by, the story started getting pushed in the back to all the gadgets and stuff. And so now, I interviewed this one author a while ago, and we were talking about this whole thing about explosions in filmmaking and how you write a book and this show it, don't tell it. In other words, some people like to front load everything. And she says, yeah, I went and saw the most recent Mission Impossible movie, and it was, she says, about 40, 45 minutes of gunfights and explosions, about another 40 or 45 minutes of like car chases and stuff, and then 10 or 15 minutes of character development. And that's the problem, is that we've overdone, as far as my humble opinion, we've overdone the visual.
I cannot stress enough that if someone honestly wants to try to make a career in independent film, which is actually possible, pick up Robert McKee's story, because it talks exactly about this. Film should be about imagery and authenticity, not about spectacle.
Right.
Spectacle is how many explosions can we fit in?
Right.
What's in our budget? Imagery is about images that evoke emotion. Authenticity is about actors that come across as not affected, but rather authentic.
Real people.
Exactly. Let your authors, listen to me. Let your actors go off script. Let them create that environment on set where they feel comfortable saying, I was a police officer, and as a police officer,
I would say that,
I think would it be okay if I could say this?
Right.
Let the actors not just feel like set dressing.
Right.
Elevate everyone, take everyone off the pedestal, put everyone together, or elevate everyone together.
And of course, one thing I know that I've been working with Blue Forge with is also, as a book writer, we can use film to help push our literary works.
Yes.
You can do
especially short form.
Right, short
Yes,
form,
I
yeah.
definitely encourage authors to explore short form, even if all it is stock images that they get from a stock site like storyblocks.com, stock images with them reading a segment of their book. Even things like that in short form, they will grab you those folks that look for visuals first, that would then perhaps look up your book. And it's actually not difficult to do, and especially if someone likes to read aloud, and again, if they're even a little bit tech savvy, that they can film with their phone.
I've noticed, in fact, there is a company now that's been advertising on Facebook, and I can't remember the name of it, but they're actually reaching out to authors saying, hey, we can make a short film, and using, like you said, either stock things or just short things they can film with local actors or whatever to promote your series. Book series,
I won't put them down because just like you said, editors have to charge if they're working with self-published authors. Like one of the things that Blue Forge does is we have an acting troupe called the Blue Village Acting Troupe. We have authors that actually join the Blue Village Acting Troupe for $24 a year. Yeah. And we actually cut trailers together for them. Right. In using actors from the Blue Village Acting Troupe. We did this with Michelle Lee, where we literally got an actor that looks like her main character. Oh, okay. Dressed her up as her main character and had her do like little, wow, she's a paranormal detective. Wow, I gotta go, fight this cryptid today. And, says a funny line from the book. Short form like that, especially if you have an actor or a friend that you know, like you're saying, oh, there's the queen. Yeah. Having them do little shorts under a minute, it can really help a book.
And we're in the process of doing a short film series, short film series on my sci-fi series. Yes. For that reason, so we could put some little bit more action and faces, and of course bring people to the book and see if they're going to be interested in it.
Yeah, that crossover.
So I'm really glad that you could come here today, and we got
Thanks for having me.
Another discussion. We had first of all the publishing, but now more of the film, and of course independent film. And there's an awful lot of independent film people out there in the state of Washington.
There are,
and some of them now I know of one in particular who's now, even though he's an older gentleman, he made a bunch of films, and now he's becoming an actor, and he's actually being picked up by some, larger production companies and stuff like that. So there's work out there. You just got to keep plugging away and stuff. Absolutely. And everything. So once again, I want to thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
And of course, yes, she is my publisher, and yes, I also do some little bit of film work with her, but I make no money. Not when it comes to Kitsap Literary Arts and Writers. So I'm glad that the audience out there could see another show of the Kitsap Literary Arts and Writers Artisan Showcase. If it wasn't for Bremerton Kitsap Access Television, and also Blue Forge Film and Blue Forge Press, who also helps me edit this show, our weekly show here would not be possible. Okay. Kitsap Literary Arts and Writers is a not-for-profit organization. We don't charge dues. We meet twice a month on the first and third Wednesdays at the Denny's on Kitsap Way near the highway. And we usually start the meetings around 7 o'clock. We open up to all creatives that come through there. I also have a connected small little film group that we meet once a month at the Family Pancake House on Wheaton Way in Bremerton on a second Tuesday of every month, where a bunch of us just get together and we talk about film. And we've got people with some contacts in Hollywood, and they tell us what they hear about what's going on in Hollywood and stuff like that. So it's all about, I guess you'd call it, the community coming together, and we try to learn from each other, especially from each other's mistakes. So hopefully you enjoy watching these shows. You can also look us up on YouTube. We've probably got over 100 individual shows online there at the Claw YouTube channel and website. So once again, greatly appreciate all the assistance that both BCAT and Blue Forge does for Kitsap Literary Arts and Writers. And hopefully everybody has an interesting day and a very productive year in 2025. good day.